A huge oil spill closes beaches in Southern California. Back on the bench, Supreme Court sitting for its new term today, and it's going to be a blockbuster. And Netflix scores its biggest hit ever with an ultra-violent dystopian survival drama out of Korea. Monday Need to Know. Let's go. Good Monday morning, everybody. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for October 4th. And as you can hear, I'm Carlo Versano, which means Baker Machado. He's here.
Hello, Carlo. Happy Monday. Good to see you. I feel like I haven't been on this podcast in so long. Jill apparently out sick today. I hope she's okay.
I talked to her last night. Apparently, her whole house has come down with something. So fingers crossed, it's nothing too serious, and just a cold that I'm sure her daughter got and gave to everybody. But we're pulling for you, Jill. Hopefully, she'll be back tomorrow.
Absolutely. We, of course, Carlo, and of course, we have a very busy Monday of headlines to make up for the weekend. So let's dive in to the story that's really been developing since the weekend, Carlo. More specifically, Saturday morning, parts of Southern California's coastline now covered in oil. That after a pipeline spilled about 3,000 barrels of crude. That's about 100,000 gallons right into the Pacific Ocean, where it's been washing up on beaches, killing local wildlife, and also damaging wetlands. Now, the spill happened at an offshore rig off the coast of Huntington Beach in Orange County, and it's already one of the worst in California's history. Workers and volunteers have started a massive cleanup effort, but some beaches could be closed as a result, Carlo, for months. I don't know if you've seen some of the photos from over the weekend. Just awful.
Sort of reminded me of the BP oil spill
back
a decade ago. Once you start seeing these pictures of like these little ducks and birds covered in oil, it's so depressing, right?
Makes you want to get an electric car when you see those things.
I mean, no kidding, right? I mean, this just comes down to something that we talk about on this podcast all the time, which is like, how quickly can we replace fossil fuels with renewable energy? Like, that's the question. That's the only question, the biggest question of our generation. What do we have to do to make it so that when little Franny is our age, the idea of pumping oil or burning coal is seen societally the way that we look at, marrying your first cousin, right? It's just not seriously.
What
it's
an
just
analogy.
Not something you do anymore.
Right.
It's something that maybe they did in the past, but you just don't do it anymore, no matter how popular it used to be. That's the question. How do we decarbonize the world?
Just also in just terms of the waste, like the BP oil spill, I remember as the days went on, I just became more angry and aggravated because it was like they couldn't plug that hole. So it was just going for days and days and days on end. And you're right, how fast can we make electric vehicles commercially viable? Look, a lot of companies really investing heavily in it right now. Some don't expect that you'll see maybe a quarter of all cars by 2025, maybe electric. The goal is from Ford, GM, a lot of these other car manufacturers, they'll be fully electric by 2030. But when you see stories like this, Carlo, you hope it's right now. I mean, as fast as humanly possible.
Well, and it's more than just electric cars, right? We got to do way more than that. It's a good start. It's a good start for sure. And, if I were buying a new car, I would certainly buy an electric one now. But yeah, I mean, it goes beyond that. We got to stop taking the stuff out of the earth.
All right, so let's talk now about COVID. Dr. Fauci, Carlo, expressing his enthusiasm over the weekend, that of that new antiviral pill coming from Merck that was shown in trials to cut the risk of hospitalization and death from COVID in half. Now, Merck planning to ask the FDA for emergency authorization for that pill as soon as possible. But Fauci is saying it shouldn't be seen as a reason to not get vaccinated. Now, while the vaccine numbers have continued to tick up, Carlo, 18,000 shots were just given to New York City school employees ahead of that vaccine deadline. A lot of employers now implementing those vaccine deadlines. And as a result, the 14-day change in COVID cases has actually fallen now 30% over the last 2 weeks here.
Yeah, we're definitely on the other side of this Delta wave. Like we said on Friday, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen this winter. Fauci said something on CBS yesterday about we don't, it's too early to know what we're going to, it's too early to say if we can gather for Christmas. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like I'm gathering for Christmas. Like I'm vaccinated. I don't really care about COVID anymore, frankly, personally. But this Merck drug, right? This Merck drug, it happened on Friday after we recorded. This is a potential game changer. Think about this as Tamiflu for the coronavirus, right?
Totally.
And just imagine what that could do in terms of easing the burden on hospitals. Because with this pill, assuming that it gets FDA approval or at least an emergency approval, you would just take it twice a day for a week at the onset of symptoms, and it would do a very good job of keeping you out of the hospital. You wouldn't have to interface with the healthcare system except to get the prescription, which would be gigantic, because everything else you have to do, even with the monoclonal antibodies, you still have to get an IV drip. This is literally just pop a pill like it's an aspirin in the morning. I'm sure this thing is going to end up getting politicized, and in fact, it already is. I saw that there's some conspiracy theories out there that are accusing Merck of burying ivermectin, which is the pill, the sort of like horse dewormer pill that Merck developed and no longer has a patent on, in order to profit from this pill. So look, there's always going to be this stuff, but let's, once again, science saving our ass.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, this thing is going to be assuming this pill gets on the market, combined with the vaccines, it's going to help make this thing into an endemic disease that we don't have to really think about too much anymore.
Such a good point, Carlo. And look, the next phase when it comes to medicines are going to be these antiviral medicines. It's going to be pills. It's going to be nasal sprays. It's going to be all of that, to the point of COVID's still going to be a part of our lives, at least for the foreseeable future. But how do you sort of mitigate it? Almost in the sense of you catching a cold or a flu or any of that, when you basically, if you catch a cold, you take cold medicine to sort of, bring down the symptoms. This is essentially the next phase of what our lives are going to be with COVID. If you somehow contract it down the road, there are going to be a myriad of potential different options for you to sort of mitigate that, so that way you're not going to the hospital anymore. And I think that's basically going to be the next phase of things out here.
Absolutely.
All
God
right.
willing, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. All right, let's continue on with politics here. House Democrats blew a self-imposed Friday deadline to vote on that bipartisan infrastructure bill after progressives revolted, saying that they wouldn't vote to pass the bill until they had a commitment from those centrists on a bigger spending package. Of course, we're talking about Sinema Manchin here. Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema remain the two key holdouts on that legislation, which continues to be negotiated down from its original price tag of $3.5 trillion over 10 years. Now, Sinema was actually followed, Carlo, into the bathroom at Arizona State University. This is where she also teaches on the side, and she was berated by immigration activists who demanded that she support a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers as part of the bill. I don't know if you watched SNL over the weekend, but basically we had Cicely Strong performing as Kyrsten Sinema, and you had Aidy Bryant as Joe Manchin. And you sort of got the idea, and it was actually, they nailed the characters so well, because Kyrsten Sinema has been criticized as being incredibly vague. Except for maybe her conversations with the White House, nobody knows what her number is, what things that she would support. And then you have Joe Manchin on the other end of the spectrum, which is essentially, as Aidy Bryant said on SNL, I come from West Virginia. I'm a Democrat from West Virginia, so if I choose an electric car, they are going to kill me in West Virginia.
Sinema, by the way, I should note, we've been saying her name wrong. It's Kyrsten Sinema, not Kirsten. Somebody pointed that out. So apologies on behalf of me and Jill and Baker for all the Kirstens out there who I'm sure get their names mispronounced all the time. I don't know what to make of Sinema. I mean, Manchin sort of makes sense. I mean, he's basically a conservative guy who is from West Virginia, and he has to sort of legislate as such. Sinema, I don't really get, because I don't know. Like you said, it's so vague. It's unclear what she wants, what she's trying to do. But I don't know. I mean, look, say what you will about the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, but the fact that they actually flexed their muscles here to delay this vote, and against Pelosi, that's a big deal. I mean, that never would have happened back in the day. So that wing of the party, that caucus, really has some teeth. And again, this is all very messy, and we don't know what the end result's going to be, but at least they're fighting over big ideas, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but like, what does the current Republican Party stand for? Like tax cuts and fealty to Donald Trump, and the belief that the election was stolen?
They're still trying to figure that out, Carlo. I think the Republican Party is still trying to figure out who exactly they are right now, and that's sort of this fight that you're having. And it's interesting because the more conservative Trump side of the Republican Party clearly outnumbers the more establishment, maybe moderate Republicans that are still basically left out there. I mean, even the Republicans that voted to impeach Donald Trump, Dave Wasserman over at the Cook Political Report thinks that maybe 3 or 4 of them might actually survive the midterm elections, which is incredible to think about. But let's go back here to talk about the infrastructure deal, because this is interesting. Okay, so progressives basically came down originally, when this all started, Carlo, from $5 trillion. That was originally what Bernie Sanders had originally proposed here. They brought it down to $3.5 trillion, and then Sinema and Manchin basically said that that was a non-starter for them. Manchin, apparently, at an ask back in July, Chuck Schumer, his initial top line was about $1.5 trillion. Schumer then told reporters last week he thinks he can maybe massage Manchin to increase that number. And again, we don't know what Kyrsten Sinema's number is on all of this. The reason I'm bringing this all up is because there's fresh reporting this morning from Politico that seems to indicate that Democrats think they can maybe get this bill done between $1.9 trillion and $2.2 trillion. So that's basically where they think the framework is going to be that satisfies progressives and the Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema side of things. So if that's going to be the end number here, the next basic thing will be, can Pelosi and Schumer get it for a vote within the next month? And the thing is like, look, most of this is Democrats' self-imposed deadlines here. Democrats really have until next November to get this done. But it's all about how much this is going to politically hurt them potentially before the midterms, especially given the fact that a lot of Republicans are hitting these moderate Democrats in these swing districts potentially that they think that they'll win back. So if the number is between $1.9 and $2.2 trillion, maybe we see a vote on that within the next few weeks or so.
Yeah, I've always thought it was going to be like $2 trillion. And again, these policies that are in this bigger social spending bill are widely popular.
Yes, they are.
Actually pull them on the policy. Now, the Democrats are dumb, so they call this a reconciliation bill or a Build Back Better or a human infrastructure bill. And you're like, I don't really know what that means. Instead of saying like, okay, this is a bill that will rapidly decarbonize our grid.
So you bring up, hold on, you bring up a really important part. And this is one thing that Barack Obama was heavily criticized about when Democrats got the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, passed. Democrats heavily criticized Obama heading into the midterms that he didn't go out and campaign and tell everybody what was in the bill, because as we see to this day, 70% of Americans support Obamacare. It's widely popular right now, but back then, Americans didn't know what was in it, and Democrats got crushed in the midterms, absolutely demolished. So that is going to be a huge thing for not just Joe Biden, but for House Democrats and Senate Democrats to go out and say all the important popular things in that bill, or else Republicans are banking on them not being able to get that message out, and they're going to be crushed again for the midterms again.
All right, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
Right. Oh, yes. I remember those days, Carlo. All right, let's talk about the Supreme Court. My gosh, a lot of drama going to be happening over there. They open their new term today, and it is a huge one, Carlo. The justices will hear major challenges to abortion rights, gun regulations, and the separation of church and state as it pertains to public schools. Now, the biggest case, probably that challenge to that Mississippi abortion ban, and that could lead to a showdown over Roe v. Wade and the constitutional right to an abortion. The court's new term comes as recent polling shows a significant drop in public opinion of the institution. We should also note the new swing justice, Brett Kavanaugh, and I'm using swing justice in quotes because, again, he is much more far to the right than traditional swing justices are. He is going to be the only justice that will actually not be in court today. He's going to be on Zoom remote because he had tested positive for COVID last week.
Yeah, no symptoms, and he was fully vaccinated, just for the record there, if you were wondering. And the Supreme Court also, their arguments are going to be, I think, audio only, which means you can actually listen to them for the first time.
Correct.
So that's cool, because usually these things are like a black box. So that'll be very exciting, at least for constitutional law students, to be able to listen.
Isn't it weird, though, by the way, the Supreme Court still to this day in 2021 does not have a live stream video feed whatsoever. The Supreme Court's still so antiquated that they only allow audio recordings here.
Well, they don't answer to anybody, so it's like, why do anything? I mean, I'm surprised they even do the audio, frankly. Roe v. Wade, Roe is going to be as good as dead by next summer. The gun case that they're talking about here in New York is also really going to be depressing if you care about gun control, because they're going to almost certainly rule that the Second Amendment allows you to carry handguns in public, which is, of course, just what we need here. But I get a kick out of these justices recently sort of realizing that a big chunk of the country thinks that they're nothing more than partisan hacks. I mean, you've seen
which they deny. They come out and say every last few weeks, all of them, even from Stephen Breyer to Amy Coney Barrett, coming out saying that they're not like that.
Yes, on all sides, they're talking about like, oh no, we are, we're not these hacks. We're actually these, really important institutionalists that are preserving the Constitution. They thought all along that they were above that, but it's just becoming clear that they are hacks. They've always been hacks. I mean, it makes me feel a little bit, better just because the Supreme Court, as far as I'm concerned, is basically an illegitimate institution. It's one of our worst, and we have some bad ones. And nine unelected 100-year-old people deciding whether or not what you can do with your body. I'm sorry. I mean, I'll get hate mail for saying that, but I think that's illegitimate.
Well, so let's talk about what potentially could happen here, especially with the Roe v. Wade situation here. And I'm saying this, that all eyes are going to be clearly on Brett Kavanaugh for all of this, because again, Brett Kavanaugh now is essentially the swing justice in this. And to kind of read potentially on what he might rule when it comes to this Mississippi abortion case, you essentially have to read the tea leaves of what his decision was about the Texas abortion case. Yeah. And you have to, unfortunately, read the statements coming from Maine Senator Susan Collins over the course of the last couple of weeks, because you might remember when Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court, Susan Collins, more than any other senator, was incredibly criticized for her vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh during that incredibly contentious confirmation hearing. And she was asked repeatedly, because again, she's a pro-choice Republican woman in the Senate, right, do you think Brett Kavanaugh will vote to overturn Roe v. Wade? And she apparently got the reassurance from Brett Kavanaugh in their one-on-one conversation that he wouldn't, because he believes in established precedent when it comes to Roe v. Wade. Yeah. That's at least what he told her. Who knows if he decides if he wants to change his perspective on any of that. But just after the Texas abortion case happened, Susan Collins was again berated by reporters asking her, do you regret your decision to confirm Brett Kavanaugh? And she said no, because if you read Kavanaugh's decision regarding Texas, he again said it is incredibly a flawed law, and that he believes in precedents. So she's sort of giving this idea that maybe Brett Kavanaugh might not rule in favor of the Mississippi abortion case, and he might rule regarding precedent to keep and uphold Roe v. Wade. Who knows what's going to happen at the end of the day, but really, he's sort of the key justice here, because if you think Amy Coney Bryant and the other Republicans are going to vote to overturn it, and you already think John Roberts is going to side with the liberals when it comes to keeping Roe v. Wade in place, really then all eyes are going to be on Brett Kavanaugh.
I would not bet, if I were a betting man, I would not bet that Roe v. Wade exists as it does today, this time next year.
Yeah, it will be interesting to watch, Carlo. We got to move on and talk about this major leak of financial documents from world leaders that was published over the weekend by several news organizations. They're calling these the Pandora Papers, and the docs reveal how current and former political leaders use sprawling networks of offshore accounts and shell companies to hide millions of dollars in cash assets. Among the allegations in the leaks, the King of Jordan apparently has a real estate portfolio worth more than $100 million, and that spans from Malibu houses all the way to London townhouses, and the list goes on. Even I think Tony Blair and his wife also included in this. They had a multi-million-dollar townhouse in London, and according to the Pandora Papers, they basically staved off $400,000 worth of taxes on this.
Yeah, there's also, I haven't had a chance to really dig into this. I've read some of the sort of reporting on it, but I haven't really looked at any of these documents yet. But one of the things that I did see that I sort of, I guess, laughed a little bit, but an alleged mistress of Vladimir Putin bought a $4 million pad in Monaco after she apparently allegedly had his baby. There's been a few of these stories. The Panama Papers was the last big one of these dumps. They never really have legs in the media, I think, and it's because, like, is anybody surprised by this? Like, are you surprised that, like, Putin or the King of Jordan use tax havens and, don't pay taxes? Get out of here.
Right. I 100% see what you're saying. The old school media thinker, loves the fact that 600 journalists, they took 600 journalists from 1,000 different countries working on this. So I love deep investigative reporting. But this stuff is incredible information, and obviously it's forced all these big global leaders to have to actually come out and release statements about this. Yeah. But to your point, does it move the needle when we're obsessed with shiny other objects about something else? Most likely no.
Yeah, exactly.
Carlo, I don't know if you've been watching Squid Game, which, by the way, has been out for weeks now, but really it's been gaining a lot of attention over the course of the last few days. It's the latest Netflix sensation, and it's such a bona fide smash hit. It is the #1 show in more than 90 countries, and it's on track to be the streaming giant's biggest hit ever, and that is really saying something on a lot of the viral hits that Netflix has had. The South Korean dystopian survival drama, one of the rare series to go viral simultaneously around the world without making a big marketing campaign being pushed behind it. So what makes Squid Game so good? Well, it has amazing reviews so far, strong word of mouth, and an endless supply of memes that are circulating on social media. There's even like parts of just the idea behind some of the games that these people are having to play in Squid Games are so grotesque that that's also part of the reason why people are watching it. Almost like this car accident, this ambivalent gaze that you can't turn your eyes away from.
Yeah, the success of the show, and the show was rejected for years by studios that just said, like, it's too gory, it's too unrealistic. Then Netflix picked it up, and it's a huge payoff for Netflix. They spent $700 million over the last 5 years just investing in Korean television and movies. I sampled the show. I've watched a couple of the episodes. Maybe I'm the only person in America. I didn't really think it was that great. I thought the set design was really good, but I don't know. I'm not really into like super violent stuff.
So that's interesting you say this. So one of our production crew members, she's Korean, and she was telling me Friday, she's like, I watched it with my parents. It was like this amazing bonding moment that she had with her parents who are from Korea, because there's so few shows that you can watch that are Korean in the United States. And she said, look, for all the talk about how gory and crazy it is, it's actually incredibly well written. The character development is really great. It's very layered very well. And interestingly, also, Jeff Bezos came out over the weekend and even congratulated Reed Hastings and Ted Sarandos and Netflix, congratulating them on making something international so big all over the place, saying how hard it is to get something international to become such a viral thing. And Squid Game has essentially become that.
That is true. Yeah. No, it's really impressive actually what they've done with it. It's an interesting show. I don't want to poo-poo it too much. And I only watched a couple episodes, so I don't know. One thing that I did watch, can we just talk about very briefly? I know we're going over already today. Did you see Many Saints of Newark?
Oh no, it's next in the queue. You know, like I'm not paying any attention to the box office. It didn't do well in the box office. You didn't like it? Oh, interesting.
Sucked.
Interesting.
Probably I was so excited for this movie, The Sopranos prequel.
Yeah, me too. I'm still excited for it.
It was the most disappointed I have ever been watching a movie. No joke. I can't even believe it. I don't know if anyone else saw it out there. Any other Sopranos fans? Maybe I'm missing something. It didn't feel like The Sopranos. Didn't look like The Sopranos.
That's unfortunate.
I don't even know what it was. Yeah, I'm so
bummed.
That is
really unfortunate. Because I'm with you. The Sopranos changed television. You know, in 1999, what HBO established in terms of a high-end drama like The Sopranos, it changed television forever, and so I loved it, and so I was so excited to watch this, and now your review is now giving me second thoughts now as a result.
Maybe this is why I'm in such a bad mood this morning. I'm not even in a bad mood. It's just Monday. I was just watching yesterday. I was like, I can't believe, what is David Chase doing? This is not The Sopranos.
Wow. Well, by the way, he is so furious that the movie is at HBO Max right now and it's streaming simultaneously in addition to theaters because it brought in a paltry like $5 million in theaters at the box office. And so he was telling reporters over the weekend, who knows how much better it could have been at the box office if it wasn't streaming at the same time.
Honestly, I would have been even more upset if I paid money in a movie theater to watch that. He should be thanking his lucky stars they put that on HBO Max.
Interesting.
Yes, it was that bad. And if anyone else disagrees, I'm all ears. So please tell me what I missed.
Good to know.
Okay, Baker, as always, we're going over, but we want to do some quick. We want to do some quick more to know before we go. So I'll kick it off here. The Major League Baseball wild cards are set. The Red Sox are hosting the Yankees tomorrow in the American League after both those teams won yesterday. Two incredible games, if you saw them, avoiding a really sort of chaotic tiebreaker situation we don't have to worry about. Over in the National League, the Dodgers playing the Cardinals for the National League wild card on Wednesday.
Yeah, the World Series champs playing the team that won like 17 in a row. That's incredible to show you how good the National League is, especially the San Francisco Giants who won that division. Meanwhile, Tom Brady made his highly anticipated return to to New England yesterday, Carlo, and he left a big winner. The Bucs beat the Pats on a last-minute missed field goal attempt by New England. Brady was cheered. He was also booed at the same time, and he also beats the NFL's all-time passing record in the process from that big game last night.
That was also a great game. Overseas, North and South Korea have reestablished their telephone hotlines, which the North had cut off earlier this year. The telephone lines are pretty much the only official ways that the two Koreas communicate with each other, and this could be a sign that the North is willing to reengage on nuclear talks, although it's probably too early to say.
All right, let's also talk about the Facebook whistleblower who provided thousands of pages of leaked internal documents to the news media and lawmakers has now been revealed to be Frances Haugen. She's a former product manager who resigned last spring. Haugen telling 60 Minutes on Sunday that she grew increasingly alarmed at what she saw while working at the company. She said Facebook over and over again has shown it chooses profit, Carlo, over safety.
She's also testifying in front of, I believe, the Senate tomorrow.
Tuesday,
so she'll be all over the media this week. If you didn't see that interview on 60 last night, shares of the Chinese property developer Evergrande halted overnight in trading in Hong Kong. That signals a potential rescue bid for that indebted company that's on the brink of collapse. That collapse really worrisome because it could rattle global markets.
Yeah, all indications had been that the Chinese government had to step in to save this company, Carlo, if they were going to basically stay solvent. And this just crossing in just a few seconds ago, Carlo, the New York Times reporting Johnson & Johnson will request an emergency use authorization for their booster shot of their vaccine as soon as this week. They're becoming the last of the 3 American vaccine makers to do so. Finally, some clarity for the 14+ million Americans out there who got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine but have felt like they've been left out in the cold about what to do.
My brother, one of them, he's like, what the heck, man? I got that shot, and I feel like nobody cares about me anymore.
Right. So
good news for them. Okay, well, Baker, as always, thanks for pinch hitting. It's great to have you, brother.
Always. Love to be here.
Jill, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Feel better. And, guys, that's what you need to know for Monday, October 4.